blaming, the illegal aliens. This is the Medicaid. We know this is not true. Like there's so many lies that's put out there, and then you have like this disgustingness of like these AI videos, like all of this stuff is just starts to penetrate with people. But I think for you guys, for the fight point of it, like people want you guys to hold strong. They want you to be strong in this fight and not like fight for the people. I think that's what's missing in this time and frame where we are, is that people want their representatives to fight for them. And you guys have always done a really good job. I know you've only been there since January, but even before that, you've always fought for your constituents. And I know my rep does too. My rep is Steny Hoyer. He's always fought for us.
You got
yes,
the dean, our delegation.
The dean, yes, the dean.
So I lead the charge.
Exactly, and I appreciate that, right? I mean, I was happy to see all of you together today, with the governor and being able to talk through this. And I know there are programs that are now being put forth. I saw that there's like a $700 loan that federal workers would be able to apply for. They would, there are programs out there, but I just feel like some of those programs, people don't really know about them. So how can they find out about them?
Well, we have a whole package on our website. If folks want to call us or visit our website, we have a whole toolkit on how individuals can be helped access all the programs that are out there, local, state, and federal. I know Sarah's office does something very similar. And I would just say, as we engage in what I think is the right fight here, I would just want to leave before we sort of turn things over to the next group. My parting thoughts, and I'll let Sarah add hers, is that in all things, it is better to hope than despair. And so every day I wake up and have that hopefulness and that optimism that we will find that breakthrough. We will find that Republican who sees the light. We will have the American people speak up enough that we get to where we need to be, that we win the fight that we know is right here. And so that would be my bit of encouragement before we wrap. And I turn things over to my colleague to help wrap this up with you.
First of all, Tiffany, thank you for helping lead this conversation. And like Johnny, you can go on our website, elfrith.house.gov, and we have a whole, not just resource guide, but like FAQ if you have a specific question. And you can always call our offices. Ours are open, answering phones, responding to emails. I'm going to do a live stream tonight with just some basic Q&A on the questions that we've been getting today, so people have that information. And like Johnny, I am hopeful about the participation that we're seeing from our constituents. Right? Like we nerded out about political science today, but that's what our founders wanted for this system to work. Like Johnny and I cannot do our jobs if we don't hear from our constituents. And if our constituents and other constituents around this country aren't engaging with their elected officials in this moment, so please just continue to lean in, continue to participate, and continue to share your voice.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time to speak to me, and we have your back. So keep fighting the good fight for us. We appreciate all that you do, and we hope that no one wants this shutdown, but it is, like you said, a necessary fight. So we're hoping that this doesn't last too long, and that, hopefully clear minds and hearts, because this does impact people personally, will prevail, and we will get through this shutdown fairly quickly. So thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks later. Bye-bye.
Good morning. Hello, I am Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, very honored to represent the people of Portland, Oregon, Hood River, Sandy, lots of the area around Mount Hood. And am honored to be here today with our AFSCME sisters and would love for you both to introduce yourself and help us understand what perspective you're going to be bringing to the conversation today. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Charlotte James from Philadelphia, representing District 1199C, healthcare worker.
Very good.
Good morning. My name's Jean Weber. I'm from Pennsylvania also, Evansburg, Pennsylvania, and I represent retirees in across the state, over 9,000 retirees.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here. I, in my prior life, still am a physician in the intensive care unit as well as pulmonology. And so I think we will have a lot of things that we can talk about, having seen people in crisis, see people going through mental health instability due to healthcare conditions and other things, lack of access to their medications, certainly precipitating some of these emergencies. And so would love to just dig right in with both of you to, helping folks understand a little bit more about what your backgrounds are and how we might be able to really center the American people who are having their healthcare threatened. As many as 20 million Americans are going to likely lose their health insurance either because they can't afford their premiums or they're losing their Medicaid. And we know that Medicaid is a lifeline for so many, and it keeps our communities healthy. So would love to just hear sort of a little bit more about your backgrounds and what concerns you as we look at potentially as many people losing their health insurance as we expanded with the Obamacare ACA expansion that has happened over the last 15 years.
I work in behavioral health in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at one of the most busy crisis hospitals that they have in my area. I feel like the cuts are deterring people from getting the care they need in the hospital. It's increasing wait times, and the foreseeable future, if more cuts do come, the big bill goes through, continues on, people will lose their, some people will lose their health care coverage. Some people won't be able to afford their health care coverage, won't be able to afford to pay co-pays to keep their continuum of care going. It leaves us unable to care for the patients, give them quality care. It increases wait times.
Yeah. And sometimes that wait time is literally the moment that you can intervene before things really get precipitously worse. And so if somebody's sitting in an ER and they know that they need help and then it takes hours, they could be in a full-on mental health crisis if they haven't had the access that they need to medications or stabilization. So I'm really grateful for the work that you all do. I know that crisis mental health care is some of the most stressful, challenging care, and also some of the most dangerous for healthcare workers when you're understaffed. It is not a safe situation for patients nor for the healthcare team. Jean, please tell us more about your background and what you're concerned about with the Medicaid and the healthcare cuts in general.
I have several concerns. I was here in May when the hearings took place and they voted to cut funding to Medicaid. And I left here very disgruntled because I felt like people weren't listening. They weren't putting the American people first. And I have, in my background, I'm retired now, but I had worked for 36 years at a facility for mentally challenged individuals, which we only have 2 left in the state of Pennsylvania now. And I'm just concerned with their welfare. They rely so heavily on federal funding. And when that funding goes away, I'm concerned with what's going to happen to them. I don't want to find them out on the streets, they deserve so much more. And my retirees that I represent live on a fixed income. And right now we are just overwhelmed with the increase in in everyday living, in groceries, in fuel. Everything has just, when you're on a fixed income and you have to make do, to think that it's going to affect our Medicare with the Medicare cuts that's coming is just unreal. And I have many members who have husbands and wives, family members that are in nursing homes, and the Medicaid cuts are going to affect those nursing homes. So I'm here for a lot of reasons, but my primary reason is that I just want them to stop and think about what they're doing, give the respect to our American citizens that they deserve, and pull back some of these funding cuts and do what's right for the people in our state.
Absolutely.
And all over the United States.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to say what you both are speaking to resonates very much in Oregon all the way across the country. You know, I think this is true in every state. And Jean, I want to double down on what you were just saying, that, you know, these are not unrelated issues. The Democrats are fighting for protecting healthcare and the affordability of people's lives and making sure that Russell Vogt and Donald Trump can't just go back on it and do whatever they want after we get to an agreement. We want an ironclad agreement. So we are in a government shutdown now today. We woke up to a government shutdown because Republicans refused to center the American people, who are really going to be the ones who suffer as a result of the big, ugly law that they passed. Democrats want them to really center people over billionaires, and they're refusing to do that. So now we're in a standoff where, you know, Democrats are holding the line and Republicans are holding the line. And how is this going to move forward? A lot of people are asking, and I think it's because people in the communities are going to have to say, like, what this means. So could your retirees afford to pay more for their healthcare? Obviously, you have Medicare. And as you said, though, Medicaid is so important, even for our retirees who worked, you know, and worked hard, played by the rules, got their pensions, have a fixed income with their Social Security and pensions, hopefully. But yet there's not extra room for Medicaid cuts to then, you know, destabilize people as they're aging and need help. And, you know, whether it's in-home care through Medicaid or skilled nursing facilities, like, our retirees are the people who are really reliant on that Medicaid being persistent.
I don't think that we can take any more onto our pensions and our Social Security. There's just not as much money there to take all the money that's being billed on us. Every bill you get is higher. Everything you need to live is higher, and for increased costs or actually less medical attention will come with all of this, I'm sure. I live in a rural area where our rural hospitals are barely surviving now.
Yeah.
And cuts are not going to be a good thing. I'm worried that to get care, we might have to travel over 100 miles to get care. We're talking like, this is life and death for people. This is their livelihood. My retirees worked all their lives for the state, a lot of them for the state,
taking care of us,
for counties and for municipal people. And they worked hard. They worked behind the scene doing what needed done. And now when they should be able to sit back and have a decent life, they're struggling.
Yeah.
They're struggling. And that's my concerns. I'm just so concerned and hoping that somewhere someone listens and gives them the respect that they deserve.
Absolutely. And I am going to pivot to Charlotte here, but I just want to make sure that people understand that AFSCME are public employees who are making government work, or making our communities run. And you, to get a pension, have had to put in years and years taking care of the public, only to potentially have us, you know, breaking our promise that if you work hard and serve your community, that the community will take care of you as you retire and age with dignity and respect. And so really, like, it is it's a breach of trust. It's a break of a promise for us to not have made sure that you can retire with security and stability and dignity. Charlotte, I'm very concerned, as I think you are, about the impact of Medicaid cuts on the mental health institutions, as well as just the system in general. Medicaid in my state, I'm guessing Pennsylvania is similar, pays for a vast amount of our mental health care, certainly our addiction services, certainly emergency mental health facilities like you work in. Vast majorities end up being Medicaid patients because, frankly, those folks who have, the wealth and stability to have gotten other care are probably going to be more stable than the people who are left vulnerable and unsupported in our communities. And so Medicaid has been a lifeline for so many people in our community, and many in Oregon have really been helped by the investments Medicaid has made in addiction services as well. Can you just talk more about what loss of Medicaid may mean for your job and your facility, and how that could end up hurting people in our communities?
I feel like it's going to be a decrease in the labor workers, healthcare workers from all aspects. We've already seen in the past months the uncertainty and instability within the behavioral health, mental health addictions sector, where we've in my region have had a mass amount of closures of programs that have been around for long continuous of time. We've seen a lot of realigning staff, losing staff, a lot of open positions because of the uncertainty with healthcare. We don't know if people are going to healthcare facilities are going to have funding come past January.
That's right.
We've seen more recidivism with patients coming back in. The cycle of keep on going on and getting discharged, coming back in. Also, the cuts to the Medicare and Medicaid, people are not going to be able to afford the co-pays. People have a hard time already paying co-pays before this. So a dollar does make a lot of difference to somebody.
Absolutely.
Going from 25 cents to $1 or $5. A lot of people, their psychiatric medication is their life-sustaining medication. People only grasp the concept of life-sustaining medications as insulin and things like that, but people's psychotropic meds are their life-sustaining
100%.
meds. Outpatients, we see outpatients closing. There's a lot of things that have been imploding just with the thought of this bill going all the way through, and what comes to us in the new year. Are we going to be funded? Are grants? There's a lot of grants that were cut. Are we going to have the funding to do the work that we intentionally do every day to care for people? Staff, the morale goes down. Mm-hmm. We're all walking on eggshells. We don't know if we're going to be employed. Even though I work in an urban area in the city, we still take some of the cuts. We don't know if we're going to have enough funding to succeed.
No, absolutely. And if it's similar in Pittsburgh as it is in parts of Oregon, yes, you are the funnel that everyone comes to when things are closing in the rural areas, and when clinics are closing, people end up in crisis, and they're going to be funneled towards your facility at a time where you don't have the workforce and the stability and the resilience to deal with that increased acuity as well as increased volume. What can you just help people understand? Because a lot of folks don't understand what it's like to take care of someone who is in a mental health crisis, especially someone who's been stable on their psychotropic medications, and to not have those, and then that desperation and that panic that people feel and then can't regulate their actions and their emotions. What is that like as a worker on the front lines, trying to be empathetic and compassionate at a time where you also just need to navigate the challenges of dealing with somebody who's unregulated with short staffing?
You're meeting people a lot of the time, most of the time, the majority of the time, at their most darkest time, at their most lowest time, that's just trying to see a little bit of light, a little bit of sunshine to get them from day to day. Like I'm going to keep repeating that it increases the time. Like in the state of Pennsylvania, you have to be stabilized in medical. If you have less medical professionals that solely do medical to clear people to move on to psych, it increases their anxiety, their symptoms have more outbursts, more aggression, because it's more waiting. All these things with these cuts adds more waiting on a system that's already taxed and overloaded.
Yeah. Yep. No, we absolutely are seeing that. You also need to have a place, when people can come in the front door, you also need to have a place for them to go to be discharged to. And Medicaid, really supports a lot of those institutions and facilities where once you've stabilized people medically and psychiatrically, they need to have follow-up care to keep them from coming back, that recidivism that you were talking about. So as Medicaid cuts are going to be impacting those facilities, like it's just going to become a worse problem. And, we are in the news in Portland because of so much of our mental health crisis and our houselessness. And mental health and houselessness go hand in hand for some folks, because it's hard to go to work and remain stable if you don't have healthcare that keeps you regulated, and then you lose your job and then you're dysregulated on the streets, and there's really a lack of hope for so many people, that sunshine that you were talking about needing. So I'm devastated for our communities right now as we're looking at this. If the Republicans don't come to the negotiating table to center our communities are really going to suffer. And we're going to lose healthcare workers that are so critical to us being able to rebound despite the harm. I want to just give you both the opportunity where, coming down on time, like what are some things that you just want people to understand that you haven't said, or ask me questions, whatever. I'd just like to let you lead the conversation.
That this impacts us not just professionally and as employees, healthcare workers, it impacts us on our personal levels of life, where family members may not be getting the services that are just due to them when it comes to the cuts that comes January, with intellectual supports, co-pays, being able to go to a reasonable outpatient, to go to rehab. These are all things that are being cut in this big bill, because it's most certainly not beautiful.
I totally agree with you. And let me follow up on that. A lot of people think that if you have a union job, you're a public employee, you're living rich on the dime of the American taxpayer. Is that your experience for either of you?
Not at all. I'm in a collective bargaining agreement. Some of my coworkers utilize Medicaid, Medicare to be able to get the extra supports that they need for their family member. If you have somebody that has a chronic illness or a chronic diagnosis that requires other supports such as therapy, occupational therapy, and things, speech therapy, different facets that go along with autism and ID. All these things are needed for them to prosper, and they're stagnated. This bill is going to stagnate people's growth in their care.
That's right. Jean, how about you? Are you living the high life on the public side?
No, not really. I will tell you though, people need to stop and look around at the people who are struggling around them, even if they are living good themselves, because there's so many people that are dependent. We have so many disabled people who are dependent on Medicaid. We have people that are on the Affordable Care Act now. I have a good friend. She's a widow and she's raising her son. She doesn't know what she's going to do, how she's going to be able to afford the premiums on the Affordable Care Act. Her premium now is just out of sight. People have car payments, could afford a couple cars on what her premium is. Yeah. It's just unbelievable. And we need to stop and see what's happening to the American people and the struggles that they're going through, instead of just jamming on through and pretending like everything's fine. It is not fine for people out there. And we have to stop. This is life or death for people and their families. And we have to do something about it.
100%. And I really appreciate what you're saying. Like, even if you're doing okay, you need to check in with all of those other folks in our community. And I think most of us are going to, be resilient and put on a good face and go out in public. And it's just right below the surface, the stress and the harm that's being done by having to struggle every day just to get by. How can the community check in with each other, especially during this shutdown, when I think people are going to have, more challenges getting their services, getting access? We know Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security is funded despite the government shutdown, but all of the workers that help make that happen, many of them public employees, aren't going to necessarily have the resources and the teams that they need to make it as efficient as normal. How can we all help each other get through this time? I don't know if you have ideas. I certainly would love to hear some.
Hold the people that are making these choices and judgments accountable. Get out in November and vote. Those are the things that we need to do. How we say here, hold the line, and hold accountability.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I tell the people I represent all the time, get on the phone, call people, call these senators and representatives, and let them know what's going on. Bring them back to reality of what is needed by their people, because they're surely not representing their people that put them in office. And I agree. We have to make a change, and we have to make it at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta show up to their offices. We got to go to our state capitals, show up to their offices, knock on those doors. We got to show up to their local offices that are in our neighborhoods. We got to knock on doors. We had to do a lot of footwork, hold people accountable to what they said they were going to do for us, and tell them how they're impacting us. Because there's a lot of whimsical thoughts of what's going on in the world. We got to bring them back to reality.
I totally appreciate that. There were lots of promises made by Donald Trump and the Republican Party about making life more affordable for people from day one. And instead, we are seeing quite the opposite, and people are really struggling even more. Charlotte and Jean, I'm so grateful for you being willing to spend your time with me today, for sharing your stories. It really matters for people to hear from you and your perspectives. I just want to offer you the chance for any last words before I hand it off to our next colleagues.
I just want to thank you very much for taking time to have us and to listen to our concerns. And we'll continue to work toward our problems and try to hold people accountable and have them open their eyes and see what's going on and what they should be doing for the people that put them in office. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you. And Charlotte?
Thank you for hearing us and seeing us.
Here for it. Come back, and we'll hopefully not have to do it during a shutdown, but let's keep the conversations going. So thank you all so much. I'm going to hand it over to our next speakers.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I think we're live now. So, hey, very interesting day to be here. We have a government shutdown, something that we haven't seen in a long time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carlos Eduardo Espina. I make content in Spanish about immigration, politics, social issues, everything going on in the United States for the Latino community here. And, one of the things I'm seeing right now is just confusion. I've made a few videos about the government shutdown, and the biggest question I get is, what does this even mean? And more importantly, how does this affect me in my day-to-day life? I think a lot of people just fundamentally don't understand what a government shutdown is, because we haven't seen one in a while. The reality is, during the Biden administration, despite all the criticism it got, this never happened. So a lot of people are new to this. And so I guess, having two congressmen here, my first question would be, in the most basic terms, how can you explain to the everyday person watching this what a government shutdown is and how it can affect them?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here with my dear friend Espaillat. Right now, we're fighting to stop a huge hike in healthcare costs to the American people, especially those who are on Obamacare. 24.3 million Americans, including in my district, we have the second most enrollment. And I could tell you in Florida, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, we love Obamacare. We're probably a little more than half. In the top 5 districts, 4 out of 5 of those are Hispanic majority districts. So this is something that's key for our community. Nosotros amamos Obamacare mucho, and this is the big fight. What does it mean? Essential benefits and services will still continue to flow, whether it is Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, or other benefits. We will continue to make sure that essential offices are open, but there is unfortunately some pain because the Republicans refuse to negotiate. And you brought up an excellent point. Under Biden, we would negotiate with the Republicans. They would get a few budget items. For instance, we worked on permitting reform and limiting the amount of increases of spending in our recent budget that we had 2 years ago. We worked with them. We negotiated. They left town. House Republicans are at home. At least the Senate Republicans are here. House Democrats, and Senate Democrats are here. But they left town because they would rather have a shutdown than negotiate to stop a healthcare hike of $1,500 to over $15,000 per family for millions of folks, including our constituents. And so we're up here doing the work, and appreciate you taking the time today.
No, thank you very much. And I see we've been joined now by the Congress of New York. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Thank you. Good to see you again. And just to give you an idea of what this means locally, right? First and foremost, it's a Republican shutdown. They control the House of Representatives. They control the Senate. They control the White House. It is their shutdown. They have ownership of this shutdown. It's not ours. It's theirs. And so what they do, today they fire a shot, stopping $18 billion for 2 essential projects in New York City. One is the 2nd Avenue subway, is right in the middle of my district, which would address a transportation desert where 300,000 people have to walk really far away to take the subway. Mm-hmm. So we were planning on building the extension of the 2nd Avenue subway for those folks in East Harlem. And the Office of Management and Budget today said that they will stop the funding for that. Also for the Gateway project, which is a tunnel in the Hudson River. The Northeast Corridor is very fragile. You have like one rail stopped, and all of a sudden you have everything from Virginia to Boston unable to move. So it's really a national security issue. And today they also announced that they will stop the funding for Gateway, $18 billion for both of those projects, right? So that's the kind of like partisan gamesmanship that they're engaged in. And of course, as Darren said, I have 488,000 Medicaid recipients in the 13th district, in Harlem, in East Harlem, and Barrio, right? In Washington Heights, in the Bronx. And so these people that are Medicaid recipients are looking to see major cuts in their health care. And the Medicare recipients, 118,000 of them, seniors, also are looking at seeing major cuts in their health care. Or others may see a 114% increase in their premiums. So healthcare is so critical. If you don't have healthcare and you have a house and you wind up in the hospital, it wipes you out. I mean, you come out of the hospital, you no longer have a house, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's why Medicaid, Medicare, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, is so important to so many people. And Darren and I are fighting for those people. We say, no, we're not going to accept $1 trillion cuts in Medicaid so that you can give a big tax break to your rich friends and donors. We want to make sure that we're fighting for those people that need it the most. And so that's what this is about, is a Republican shutdown, and we're fighting for people that want access to healthcare.
That's perfect. And I was going to ask, I read the comments when I've been making content about this, and a lot of the people, are commenting, hey, Carlos, but Donald Trump is saying, that this is a Democrat shutdown. He even put it on the, White House website. It's all over. He's had his whole apparatus, basically repeating the same talking point. This is a Democrat.
Él es un mentiroso, Carlos. Él es un mentiroso.
And so I wanted to see if you could, in very basic terms, because like I said, this is something very new for a lot of people. We always hear rumblings of, government shutdown, but very few times does it actually happen. So now that it's happened, people are, basically trying to understand, okay, what could happen to avoid this? And, Donald Trump, he's using government websites and everything just to push the same talking point. And there's one talking point in particular. He's saying, Democrats are fighting to give health care to illegal aliens. That's the term he uses, right? He keeps pushing the same talking point. So what really, I guess, is the battle about? What is the disagreement on with Republicans? Is it really about health care for undocumented immigrants, as he's saying? Is it something else? So, you have the floor to basically clear that up and, say things how they are.
Absolutely. If I may start. So you had mentioned before Biden had negotiated with the Republicans. We negotiated with Republicans when we were in charge. So we never had a long shutdown because we would give them a few things, because in the Senate and the House, you need these things to be bipartisan. Trump has told people either his way or the highway. And the question to ask is, why would he be so willing to shut the government down rather than fixing healthcare for 24.3 million Americans, including 4.6 million Floridians? We have the biggest Obamacare exchange by far in the nation. No one ever believes me when I say that, because, we're a reddish purple state and people are like, oh, no, they wouldn't like that. We love Obamacare in Florida. 4.6 million Floridians. In fact, I have my orange juice here today from Florida, made right out of Polk County, one of the counties I represent, to think about those 4.6 million Floridians. So Donald Trump refuses to negotiate. On top of that, he wants to do mass layoffs, which is not a normal thing. Under Obama, under Trump 1, under Biden, you didn't see mass layoffs. He's doing it because he wants to use our federal workers. He wants to torture them. He wants to make their lives a living hell. He wants to use the budget. This is not normal. This is a person who is willing to enact revenge when, all we're asking for is, let's not hike $1,500 to $15,000 plus of healthcare expenses on millions of Americans. And the fact that they have to use a lie, like undocumented immigrants, they're not eligible for Obamacare. They never have. They never will be. We certainly empathize with them. And as a CHC, we believe in fighting for dreamers and for farm workers and families. But the reality is they're not eligible. And so it makes you wonder, why would they have to concoct a lie and continue to say a lie when 24.3 million Americans, very real, November 1st, they're going to get their health insurance jacked through the roof. So it's a lie that even has a deadline to it, because those are very real, 24.3 million Americans. And by the way, the biggest states, Florida, followed by Texas, followed by California. And then when you add in Medicaid with New York as well, it hits us the hardest of any group, because Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, Venezuelans, all these citizens in Florida who are of Hispanic descent, we love Obamacare. And there's a big reason for that. A lot of us are independent contractors. A lot of us work for small businesses. A lot of us don't have access to employer-based healthcare. We're hustlers. We're small business owners. We're getting it done every day. And we use Obamacare so that we could have healthcare, because otherwise we wouldn't have any. And then the last thing I want to say is, what happens if Obamacare spikes? In Florida, you have 2 million people who just can't afford health insurance anymore. They're going to go uninsured. They're going to have to jack up the rates at the hospitals, and then that's going to jack up health insurance rates for employer-based plans and for Medicare Advantage plans. So even if it doesn't affect you directly, it's coming for you eventually, because you can't have all these uninsured and think the system's not going to pay for it. If we don't pay for it now, you'll pay for it later. And so this is a fight that's absolutely critical, because costs are the biggest issue right now I hear back at home. Healthcare costs, housing costs, food costs. And so we're fighting to stop a massive increase in healthcare costs in the American people starting November 1st. And my folks back home, we had 7,000 folks on our telephone town hall yesterday. We need to stand up for them. We need to draw a red line and say, no more. And even our federal workers, they've told me, we trust you. Follow your heart, follow your instinct. We need to negotiate. And so we're here in good faith to negotiate. And that's absolutely critical as you put this into context.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take the same question, Congressman Espaillat, or you want me. I have a lot of other, because I just read through the comments. I love to read, what people are asking me, what people are saying. We've talked here a lot about healthcare, how that's going to be affected. But what about the other, basic services the government provide? I've even gotten questions like, does this mean my mail's not going to get delivered? Does this mean I don't have to go to, my immigration process is going to get delayed? I mean, how about these other agencies that are all, now going to go unfunded, maybe for a day, maybe depending how long this goes, for even weeks? Can you speak about how a government shutdown affects those other aspects as well?
Over 225,000 Latino federal workers face delayed paychecks. And for example, Latino-owned businesses that rely on the SBA loans during a shutdown will be impacted also. There are certain agencies that will be impacted. TSA is not going to be impacted. The airports are going to be running on schedule. There's other areas that will not be impacted. So it really depends on the agency. But we ask you to come to our offices if you have any issues whatsoever. Our offices will continue to be open. In fact, we're here in DC because we're committed to providing services to our constituents, the people that we represent. And I will be heading to my Harlem office and my Washington Heights office from here today, and that our doors will be wide open. And if you have any questions whatsoever about how this may impact you directly or your family members directly, please contact your local member of Congress. I know that Darren will be doing the same thing as I will be doing, which is providing key services to our people in the middle of this critical time, this shutdown, right? I mean, a lot of misinformation out there, mucha mentira. I mean, undocumented, getting Medicaid. That's not contemplated in the law. Mentira. That this is a Democratic shutdown. They run the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House. Some people assert that they run the Supreme Court too. Mentira. When you look down and you say, well, this is not really going to impact healthcare. Well, you could get 114% increase in your premiums. Mentira. So there's a lot of mentiras out there, a lot of disinformation. You can come to our offices, call us, email us if you have a question, and we'll give you the official answer to it. So let's get through this. This is about healthcare. This is about people's ability to live or die. I mean, if I am a diabetic or if I have a cancer and I'm not getting my health care because all of a sudden Medicaid is chopped up or my premiums go up, that could impact my ability to live or die. It's as simple as that.
That's a good way of putting it. And the other major question that I get obviously, I guess no one really has the answer, but how long is this going to last, or how long can this last? You guys are on Capitol Hill. Are you hopeful of any positive negotiations coming to some sort of agreement soon? Is it like, arguing with a rock? I mean, what's it looking like on Capitol Hill? I think that's what people are worried about, because I think most of us have this idea, right? Okay, if this is like a 1 or 2 day thing, maybe we'll be fine. But what if this happens a month, 2 months, 3 months? What happens? Is this forever? What's that look like? I mean, if you could just, shine some light on that.
So we're hopeful. We're obviously up here ready to negotiate. The Senate is in active negotiations. You should ask, why are the House Republicans at home right now, right? It's trying to score political points and try to do nothing to resolve this. But we're here and hopeful to do it. We have seen Trump last time we were in the Congress. He pushed it for 35 days because he doesn't really like the federal government, which is ironic to want to be president and you don't believe in the services of the federal government. And it was when the air traffic controllers finally said no at JFK that it finally ended. Obviously, we don't want to get anywhere near that. We're already looking at a November 1st deadline where for families in our district, it could be anywhere from $1,500 to over $15,000 in healthcare increases that they'll see in their premiums. A family of 4 making $40,000, $50,000 can see an increase of $1,500. A family of 2 who's pre-Medicare, 61, 62, middle class, they'll see $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 increases. So this is really important. Costs are the biggest issue. And look, the president plays a risky game when he starts talking about massive layoffs and withholding funding from different areas because normally presidents try to take the high moral ground. They try to negotiate. They lead. Instead, he's reveling in it and playing the blame game and attacking different constituents, trying to make it hell on earth for our federal employees. And the American people are angry about it. You look at already the kind of support. Independents blame Republicans already because they're in charge. Democrats obviously blame Republicans, and even Republicans are split on it because why are they fighting just to stop us from fixing healthcare, right? Why is it worth a shutdown to them to stop fixing healthcare for 24.3 million Americans? Because for them, it's about power. It's about, showing that they're tough and they're not going to bow to demands for healthcare. Seriously, for 24.3 million Americans, and then to lie on top of it. We will continue to operate in good faith. And a lot of the ways this ends is because the American people say enough. Get together, negotiate in good faith, get this resolved, and keep the government running. And that is the biggest way, by voicing your support, whether in social media, whether it is publicly in various different ways. All this is very important.
Yes. By the way, Carlos, right now, as we speak, this very moment, the Senate has voted down a bill that would have extended government for another 7 weeks while negotiations would have kept on going. The Senate, run by the Republicans, just voted down right now and kept us in what it is now, a 12-hour, 23 minutes, 40-second shutdown.
Wow. No, so, I guess the biggest question I have, and I think many people have, beyond this government shutdown, one thing I see a lot is, I'm tired of all of this. It's too much. It's been almost, we're nearing, 8, 9 months. I lost track already how long Donald Trump's been in power. And it's just controversy after controversy, problem after problem. So the biggest question people have, I have as well, is, what can we do to, basically, I don't know, get to a better place than the one we're in right now. People are suffering even beyond the shutdown. We see it on basically every policy issue, on the economy, on immigration, on education. People are struggling right now, and they want to know, how can we improve? What is essentially the light at the end of the tunnel? So any guidance, any suggestions, any words of inspiration y'all may have would be very welcome right now.
Absolutely. We could be smarter in how we vote in the next darn election. We saw a lot of our fellow Hispanic men, I say that as 2 hombres here, 3, right? That a lot of folks believed the lie that Donald Trump was going to lower costs on day one and that he was only going to deport criminals. but they didn't believe the lie that he was they didn't believe him when he said he's going to be dictator on day one, or that he was going to use the military to crack down. So we have to be smarter. They're going to try to manipulate the Hispanic community. We're people of faith. We're breadwinners. We're hustlers. We're business owners. We believe in the American dream, and they're going to try to distort it to divide us. But we have seen what's happened. In Florida, 1 million folks have lost their legal status between TPS and parole, whether it is the Cubans, the Venezuelans, Haitians, or the Nicaraguans or others. These are folks who are all being deported now. And some of their family members voted for it thinking that they weren't going to be deported. And now they're getting torn apart. And you know who they're going after? Young Hispanic men and middle-aged Hispanic men. They're going after folks like us because apparently we're the greater threat. And on top of it, look at where the economy is right now. We had a negative jobs report again today. We're losing jobs by the thousands and tens of thousands every month because the tariffs don't work and the jacking up costs and the mass deportations are hurting the economy too. And so we need to be smarter and not be dragged into these culture wars that they try to distract us with. And then they jack up costs with tariffs and deport our families. We got to keep our eye on the ball in this next election. And yes, it's going to be like a freaking novella for the next year because Donald Trump is president. And for all of us, we got to stay focused, right? It's about costs. It's about the economy. And that's what this fight is about. Literally, we all say costs are the biggest thing in the Hispanic community. This is what we care about the most. Food costs, healthcare costs, housing costs. Well, that is what we're fighting for right now. And the question you got to ask is, why aren't they just agreeing to it? They're going to bail out Argentina with $20 billion, but they can't afford $24 billion to keep the Obamacare tax credits going so that people don't get their health care jacked up. Not for nothing. Argentina's a lovely country. They're a Hispanic country too, but like this is the priorities we see: a ballroom, but you can't get health care, right? And so we got to be smart. We got to focus on the economic issues, on the healthcare issues, on bread and butter issues, because those are what affect our family the most. Interregional immigration policy, right? These are all critical. And this fight is about cost. The thing we as a Hispanic community say we care about the most, that is what we're fighting for here.
And in addition to that, Carlos, I think it's important. We in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus are doing three things fundamentally, right? We're in the courts. We're fighting the administration in the courts. We're individually involved as litigants ourselves in court cases that we feel are meritorious and that represent the best interests of our constituencies. In terms of the budget, right, and in terms of legislation, we are actively engaged in the appropriations process, presenting amendments and presenting bills on the floor to try to avert this hurt that's being proposed by the White House. That's the second rail. But finally, the third one, I think, is one that you, Carlos, and the general public has a lot to do with, and that's public sentiment, public opinion. We got to work on that every single day. I mean, public opinion drives this nation. Even Abraham Lincoln said in the middle of the Civil War that you couldn't do anything unless you have the public sentiment behind you. So people like you, Carlos, and others that are out there speaking to thousands upon thousands of people, if not millions, right? You have an important role in shaping public opinion like you're doing today about the shutdown. Because we got to be educated. When we make decisions, they have to be educated decisions. We cannot go on hearsay or mentiras. We have to be able to get as much information as we can so that we make decisions that are educated and will protect our family. Latinos, we're still growing as a community. We're a very young community. So we have to protect our families, our kids, so that tomorrow they have a better shake on what's being offered to them. You do that by having all the tools at your disposal and communicating that and building one voice. I know it's difficult for us, You know, because some of us dance merengue, some of us may like bachata or salsa or Bad Bunny or mariachi.
Whippa.
But these are different music tunes that are played by the same instruments. So we got to come together and try to get as close as possible to having one voice, una voz, so that we flex our muscle as a community. This is the time to do it.
No, that's perfect. And I think something Congressman Soto said is very true. And it's the unfortunate truth. I tell people, you know, things are going to unfortunately get worse before they get better. The reality is, well, the midterms are still a year away and he has a year in power. And I mean, who knows what he's going to do. But at the same time, I think it's so important to document everything, to make sure people are aware, so we don't forget when we go back to the ballot box in November. I hope people next year, they remember this government shutdown. They remember, you know, as y'all were saying, that he's been ripping apart families, that the economy hasn't gotten better. These are the things that need to be documented, that need to be, you know, put out on social media all over. So when the time comes to activate, to vote, to participate in the democratic process, people are more informed, because unfortunately, you know, we are in this situation because the reality is a lot of people in our community, the Latino community, supported this administration, got them into power. And now, you know, we have to put up with the consequences and learn from it and be in a better place come next election. So this was very productive. I think we're out of time because they had told me 30 minutes. I have a lot more other questions of things I could talk about, but I don't know what, you know, they're about to kick us off here or what the thing is. But, you know, before they say anything, you know, one, I guess, very quick, like one final message. If, you know, this is something you want people to take home from this whole conversation, what would be your message to the community in these times?
We're fighting to stop a huge healthcare hike on millions of Americans, and we need the Hispanic community to rally around us to make sure we tackle the number one issue we all care about, which is costs.
Perfect. Unidad, unity, Carlos. La comunidad unida jamás será vencida. We need to come together. Latinos need to come together across the country and show that we care for our families and that we have to be respected.
That's perfect. No, well, that's a good, you know, note to wrap it up on. My message would just be to remember to not forget everything that we're living, process this, understand it, and let's make better decisions next time around. That's really all it comes down to. And, you know, continue to be aware, to be informed, and keep moving forward. We always have to have our head up, and, you know, there's no other choice. We got to keep going. So, a ver qué pasa y que Dios nos bendiga.
Gracias, Carlos.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Well, take care. Y ahí estamos, mi gente. Bendiciones.
Hasta luego.
Hi, this is Maria Teresa Kumar, and I am the president of Voto Latino. And we're going to continue the conversation that we were having with members of Congress on how hard this government shutdown is going to impact the Latino community and Americans at large, not just in the short term, but if the Republicans get their way, the money that they're going to be spending cutting Medicaid on other things is going to be held super hard for every single one of the Latino community. And so in this, I'd love to bring in the conversation. I believe that we are waiting for Congressman Espaillat. He's going to be joining us soon, but let me just break it down. When we talk about Medicaid cuts, the numbers they throw around are in the billions, and it seems like a lot. But if you have a loved one that is in a senior facility, they're going to get impacted. They may not be able to afford their senior living care. They may have to go back home to live with you. When we talk about who's going to get impacted, we're talking about children, your child, your niece, maybe not having access to the insulin that she so desperately needs. We have to remind ourselves that when we do, when we go and vote, the purpose of voting is so that we are voting for a collective vision of what the country means. And when we vote, we also vote with our taxes. And so right now what the Republicans are trying to do is that they're trying to take your tax dollars hostage, eliminate your hardworking money, take it away from the resources they promised, when we're talking about Medicaid in this case. And guess where they want to funnel it to? They want to funnel it to detention systems, to ICE agents, to border security. It wasn't enough already that we became the largest military investment in ICE. That wasn't enough. They want more. And so we really encourage you to listen to what the Democrats are saying, because oftentimes people say, oh, it's about party. In this case, it's about common sense, what is fair, and what you work every single day to make sure that you're achieving. And that is more money in your pocket and making sure that your family is healthy. That's the bottom line. So as we wait for the congressman, I think one of the things that we really realize too is that in the short term, the headline is, oh, well, federal workers are going to be furloughed. You're talking about potentially tens of thousands of federal workers furloughed. What does that mean? Imagine if you all of a sudden got to work and they said, you know what, we're going to suspend you indefinitely until my bosses, my CEOs over there figure it out. Imagine being that person where you have to go back and you tell your family that you have to go to work, but they're not going to pay you until they sort it out. The last time that we had such a large government shutdown was under Trump. It was 2018. I'm here in Washington, D.C. I can tell you that from my window, I saw government employees standing in long lines waiting for food. It felt like it was an image of the 1930s. And my heart broke because these are people who decided that public service to serve you was their calling. Whether we were talking about social security agencies, where we're talking about veteran affairs, where they were talking about people that are the ones that are helping you navigate health systems, like all of it. And it shows a bit of who the priorities are, because when they talk about government furloughs, who's going to be put on deck to wait until they sort it out? Who's going to have to continue working? It's also clear kind of who their priorities are. It's not the VA, it's not the Veteran Affairs Administration that's going to keep working to give access to veterans and their health care. It's going to be ICE disproportionately. That's who the priority is. And I think there's not an American who has not seen what's happening in the different cities and who is a little bit afraid of masked agents wielding incredible power. And not asking us, is that really the best use of our government dollars? And in this case, the Trump administration and Congress has said yes. So while you're trying to make ends meet, like the majority of us in America, and while we're trying to decide what to cut back on because we may not have access to Medicaid, or what to do with my mother who's convalescing, this administration and the GOP has decided that their priority is more enforcement on our streets at the cost of what Americans need today. And so as we continue this conversation, I think it's really important that we recognize that part of how we got here is how we voted, but part of how we got here also is how we failed to vote. And I believe that we have, we're almost a year out of the election, and that means that we need to prepare. We need to identify who's on our side, who's paying attention to us, because every time we vote, we have to hold folks accountable. And every time we pay taxes, those taxes are then defined by the people who we elect to decide what should be our nation's priorities. I don't know about you, but the majority of people that I talk to, more ICE enforcement is not a top priority. Making sure that making sure that kids have access to safety meals, making sure that my food is safe because of the FDA, making sure that if you're a veteran, you have access to your health care, making sure that if you're a TSA agent, that you will get paid while you watch the planes land, is something that you should care about. And again, because of this government shutdown, and let's remember, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. They control all branches of government. And so when you read a headline or a tweet or a shenanigan that this is on the feet of the Democrats, it's because they are holding steady to ensure that your kid still gets insulin, to ensure that your grandmother or your mother are not thrown in the street because they can't afford their residential care, to ensure that at the end of the day, we are collectively safer. Because that's really what government's about. It's ultimately making sure that we're creating a pact between us so that we can also thrive collectively. There's nothing about thriving in this bill, and I encourage you to look at it. I'm going to pause right there because I think Representative Hayes is going to be joining us next in about 7 minutes. So I will continue talking. I do wish that we had an ability to have people ask questions. So maybe next time I'm putting that into the comment bar. But let me just share you a little bit more, right? We have 1.2 million seniors right now living in assisted living. 7.2 million of them are enrolled in Medicaid and Medicare. Imagine if they don't get those. Imagine if they don't get that health care when they need it. Imagine having to basically go back into the senior living facility and having to pack up your mother's clothing and her belongings. And then all of a sudden that burden falling on you of what to do next. That is what this means. Oftentimes we have a tendency of throwing up really big numbers, and it gets confusing because you're like, billions here, billions there. What does it mean? Well, it means is that it's the collective taxes that we've all paid, that we've entrusted our elected officials to do right by us. I can't imagine any household where you are paying the bills jointly and then your spouse all of a sudden, without asking you, shows up with a Lexus or another car, and you're like, but we have bills to pay. That's kind of what this is. You know, you have the headline that Trump is paying close to $20 billion to bail out Argentina. Is that fair? How does that make your life better? One of the reasons that we are here in this political state is because government has not responded fast enough to the real increasing inequality that this country is facing, to the real gaps they're facing. And the purpose of a budget is supposed to be a blueprint for our values, what we prioritize as Americans, what we prioritize as community, what we prioritize for the present and for the future. And this current budget right now is prioritizing detention systems, so incarceration, is prioritizing masked individuals to pour through our streets. That sure, it starts with the Latino community, but we can all be honest. We have now so many US citizens caught in the dragnet of this so-called mass deportation effort that it should be a chilling effect for all of us. And so if you ask, like, what can I do right now? You should call your members of Congress. Tell them that you're not aligned with this. Even if it's a member of Congress that is against it, they need to hear from you. Why? Because they need support too. We are fundamentally in this battle of ideology between big, thriving business or thriving Americans. And let's not get it twisted. No one's asking for handouts because every single one of us has paid into that system. And so for the next couple of days, hopefully it's just days, you're going to hear a lot of people that are going to try to confuse you. You're going to have headlines, they're going to be blaring, they're going to try to put it at the feet of the Democrats. That's not the case because, again, the Democrats don't control the House, the Senate, or the White House. And so ask yourself, how do I get involved? And how do I make sure that I am the most effective? And sometimes it is calling your members of Congress because you're angry at them because they're not doing the right thing and they're not doing right by you. And sometimes it's calling them to say, keep going, because it's hard and they need reassurance. But more importantly, they need to hear that this is a priority for you because I used to be a congressional staffer a long time ago. And every time there was a big issue before us, my boss would come in, he's Vic Fazio, he'd come in, he's like, how many calls did we get? How many letters did we get? And how did they stand? And based on that, that was a temperature check of whether to fight for something or to recede. And I can tell you that behind closed doors, there are plenty of Republicans that are shaking in their boots because of these Medicaid cuts. They just haven't found the courage. And you know who can give them the courage to do the right thing? Their constituents. So we need you all calling, representing us, but more importantly, representing your family and your values, so that members across the aisle understand how immediate these cuts would be to your family, and that you're not going to forget in November. I'm right now waiting for Representative Hayes. They're going to be joining us very shortly. I haven't had a chance to chat with them before, but I'm looking forward to it. I do think that the more we can get information in front of how this has been by choice, there's no need to be fighting when it comes to saving tens of millions of Americans their health care. Because again, we all paid for it. And this is all not only about values, but it's about a social contract of how we feel to ensure that every single American is able to level up, to be healthy, to be able to thrive. And those are real conversations that we need to continue having. I will tell you that when we talk about furloughed workers, we're talking about 30,000 furloughed workers. So I am going to pause there. Representative Jonna Haynes has just joined me. Hello, Jonna. How are you, Representative Hayes? Oh, you are on mute. That's what I keep doing too. I cannot hear you. Nope. But I have to say, I cannot hear you, but I love your background. I think it's fantastic.
How about now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
So before we get into the meat and crux of it, I think oftentimes people, they want to know what the feeling is. Like, what are you experiencing right now in this moment with your colleagues as you face this, massive shutdown that's going to impact millions of people?
Well, I mean, for me, I think for all of us, this is deeply personal. I did not come to Congress so that people would not be helped or receive the supports that they needed. My background is a teacher. I live and represent the community that I grew up in. And for the most of my life, I was on the receiving end of many of the decisions that are being made right now. So these are my friends. These are my neighbors. These are people I go to church with. These are people who literally are choosing when they can retire based on the health care that is available to them. And I hurt for those people. I hurt for those people because they're not here voting. They're not here at these roundtables as part of these larger conversations. So they're depending on us to do that for them. So it is a sense of deep hurt. As a classroom teacher, my children aren't just my own children. They are the children of first-generation immigrants. They are the children of veterans. They are the children of seniors or grandparents with disabilities who are raising their families. So I think about all of those people and how this is going to impact them. And they don't have time for this.
Say that again, because I think that folks oftentimes in Washington, D.C. don't realize or respect people's limited time when you are basically in a social contract with government, right? Like this is what you promised. Part of it is that's why I voted for you, and part of it that's my taxes. So why are you doing these shenanigans? Break that down, because I think that we forget, and it resonates, Representative Hayes, because there's so much time when people say, "Oh, you can vote and stand in line for forever." Not everyone can.
Right.
So speak to that.
Well, I think that this is truly full circle because I taught students about social contracts and our rights as citizens and our responsibilities as citizens. And this idea that we contribute for the greater good. We pay taxes in my state of Connecticut to send to the federal government to make sure that this entire country is well and safe and healthy and all of those things. But in return, we'd like to see those things returned to us. If there's a storm in our state, that we're not operating under the Articles of Confederation. We are the United States of America. And there is an expectation that we will meet the needs of, the people who are hurting the most. And as those needs shift, we will shift focus as it happens. So to be a part of a government and administration that literally has cut $1 trillion only to transfer that wealth to, the wealthiest corporations and individuals by way of tax breaks is really a betrayal to the people that I represent. And this idea that we live to fight another day and we can come back, for so many of these people, they don't have another day. They are living paycheck to paycheck. They are thinking about how to continue cancer treatments. They are wondering how they're going to pay their bills when we have all these competing crises going on. And these are some of the things that we warned about when we were negotiating the original bill. No state government in this country has the funds or the resources to backfill everything that is being cut. So this is, we are literally a crisis on so many different tracks. And for the people I represented, today is already too late. So delaying it even another day, another week is already to their peril. So this has to change.
So Representative Hayes, I think but that's the headline, right? Like they're not cutting anything. They're transferring from the folks that are the most vulnerable, who work hard,
right,
to the absolute wealthiest who aren't going to see it, who it's not going to make a difference to them. And oftentimes, there is a finite pie, but it is a transfer. There's no cuts. I think that lean into that, because I think people don't realize that we always have to budget, right? As a family, right? So, and we do have to do cuts, right? Like we don't have infinite, right? So there's no like transfer off to, when this happens. And I think it's having that conversation is like to the American people, because when you hear, oh, it's a cut, we're like, yeah, well, my finances are a little tight too. So I kind of get that, right? Like, but I think it's breaking it down for them that this is a transfer. Talk
exactly. It's an absolute lie. Our colleagues ran on this platform of cutting debt and deficit. And people were open to the idea of trimming down some programs and services if it would reduce our debt. But that is not at all what has happened. So these services have been trimmed down. Employees have been let go. Programs have been zeroed out or defunded, but not to return that money to the National Treasury or to bring down our debt, to now transfer them as permanent tax cuts to the wealthiest individuals who have seen tremendous growth in their wealth, in some cases almost double in the last few years, while vulnerable communities, while working Americans, while the people who show up every day and keep our country working, keep people healthy, all of those people who are service to their community are feeling the brunt and tightening their belts. So this is not streamlining government or streamlining services in order to save money. All of this money has been transferred in an unprecedented way. This is the largest cut to healthcare that we've seen. I've seen my state can only extend SNAP through the end of the month. So vulnerable people who rely on supplemental food assistance will have to figure out how that happens. LVIE and emergency heating assistance programs cut or severely diminished. And in Connecticut, we're coming up on the winter, which can be very harsh. Educational funding. We saw this play out all through the summer when superintendents and local leaders were trying to figure out their budgets going into the next year. All of them had to kind of do this Herculean task of how to do more with less, while the federal government is not doing that. It is not that we are trying to do more with less. It is that we are trying to create more so that we can transfer it to the wealthiest individuals. And that cannot be overstated, because that is exactly what is happening right now. It is not to say that we are, streamlining these programs so that we can pay down some of our debt, so that we can address some of these longstanding issues that they ran on. It is only for one reason, and that is to provide permanent tax cuts to the wealthiest individuals.
And
And I think I just cringe at that, because every other thing that was proposed, things like no tax on tips, those are all scheduled to sunset after a year. They are
say that for the people in the
they
back.
are income limited.
Say that for the people in the
They are
back.
very narrow in scope. But
Yeah.
the tax cuts to the wealthiest individuals are permanent.
And I think that, it was funny. I was just in Sonoma with my mom, and she was like, my mom is very much a Democrat, but she was like, look, we know so many people in the service industry. She's like, look, in the service industry, like, they don't have to pay taxes on tips anymore. That's huge. I said, but Mom, that's limited. And she was shocked.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that one of the things that is, that keeps, when I keep looking at what they're cutting and who they're impacting, just because of the demographic makeup of our country, that is now, if you're in kindergarten, we're part of the, they're alpha, they're majority minority children now. Like there's no majority in the classrooms in if you're basically in 8th grade and below. And so when I start unpacking like who they're trying to disproportionately impact, sadly, it's young people of color, because they're increasingly more, right? So how do we communicate to young people who are increasingly, not wrong, cynical about the process, right? But getting them invested, because whether we're talking about cuts to Medicaid or SNAP or even veterans, and you look at who's getting impacted, we are not getting impacted equally as communities. It is because Black and Brown are so young and Asians and Native Americans are so young compared to the rest of the white population that when it sounds like we're not going to have access to reproductive health, as an example, it sounds universal, but it is not. So speak to that.
Well, these cuts are being made they are targeted and with surgical precision. And if you just peel back the layers, to your point, you see who will be the most impacted. And what do? We do what we said we're going to do. When we are in power, when we are in the majority, we address things like the high cost of housing. We address things like student loan debt and increasing Pell Grants so that people can access opportunities for their family. We address healthcare in a real and meaningful way so that people won't have to rely on tax credits or supplements in order to pay premiums. We bring down the costs, and we do the things that we said we were going to do. We cannot keep telling this generation, show up, stand in line, vote. And when we're in power, we will make sure we address your most pressing concerns. And then when those things happen, we say, oh, we'll get to you next time because we have this right in front of us that we have to take care of. We have to learn how to address multiple things at the same time. And these young people who have come of age, believing in this responsibility as a citizen, trying to participate, trying to contribute, trying to be a part of the conversation, I think that they rightfully so are a little bit disgruntled because they're saying, stop telling us to wait. Stop telling us that next time we will be a part of the conversation and your solutions will address our needs. We need to do what we said we were going to do every single time. And I agree with these young people. They have to be a part of the conversation, whether it's job training programs, whether it's, no tax on tips, just to bring back that as an example, seemed like something that was appealing to most people. How about we just raise the federal minimum wage? How about we do the things that we have the ability to do so that people don't have to make these decisions in the immediacy, because literally they have to make rent at the end of this week. So they're just thinking about, how does this affect me now? That, big democracy and, saving the republic really does not resonate with them if they're saying, I can't even move out of my parents' home because I can't afford to live in the city where I work. Right. So all of those things have to be addressed in real time.
So I think, and this is it is that social contract that are missing, but I'm just going to share with you a couple of facts. Look, one of the things with what they're trying to do in these cuts, when we talk about disproportionate impacts of Black and Brown people, it will jeopardize, there's 28% of Medicaid and CHIP enrollees are going to be impacted that are Latino. And that means that we are talking about close to 50% of kids on CHIP are Brown children. And 58% of births are coming from Latino mothers who are on Medicaid. And so when we talk about this disproportion of how that impacts folks, one, it's like, this is a clear and wake up call for communities of color, that the body that you work in, Hayes, you're one of the youngest members of Congress. Like, you are not, you need more friends. You need more peers that are part of your cohort, because people making decisions right now and driving the agenda do not reflect the American body as a whole. And it gives them that liberty to do so. But the other thing, though, is, and I wanted to touch upon it, is that when we talk about the furloughs, we're talking about close to 30,000 federal workers that are on the cutting board. But I want to talk to you about how that has disproportionately, the furloughs already that happened the first time with Doge, disproportionately impacted Black women, because they made such a majority. What is, talk a little bit about, how do you drive that home? I know that my mother, my father, they both were state employees. They worked for a state hospital, and they did it because it was a way to do service. They were working with folks that were incapacitated in some form, but it was a way to do service, and it wasn't for the glory. And yet you have all of these African American women right now that are saying, we are the first ones that are the most vulnerable to these cuts. And we are oftentimes heads of households. And again, we did it for service.
Yes. So to your point, most of these programs, when we talk about in my state, Husky Care, these are people who are working, who work for low-wage employers who either don't provide plans or they have children who need health care. Mm-hmm. So these are the communities that will be affected the most. And many people work in the public sector. In the Black community, that was one of the only ways to enter the middle class, to have a retirement. People didn't have the same access to capital. So literally, generationally, people, Black women have entered government service for that very reason. But I think we have to think about it even more broadly. It's not just people who represent federal workers. It is the services that federal workers provide.
That's right.
My district in the state of Connecticut is not a place where we have a lot of federal workers, but I can tell you, we have veterans who reach out to my office and rely on services from the VA. We have people on Social Security. We have people on Medicaid. So when we can't get someone on the other end of the phone, or we can't process casework, or we can't get an answer to someone who is in crisis, that is a problem. And that affects everyone. I would say even more so people who are not in highly concentrated areas where federal workers, in rural communities. Oftentimes, getting through to someone on the phone or reaching out to your congressional representative is your only link to the federal government. So we have to think about how everyone is affected by these things. And we have people who literally have put in 20, 30 years of federal services, contractors who show up every day. And it's not just their job, it's the services they provide. It's remarkable.
And it's really important. No, and it's important to underscore that, because in losing them, we're also losing expertise and institutional knowledge, right? And and it's so funny because sometimes I don't know what government does. And part of it is just like, that could be that government is working in some cases, right? Actually,
that is really funny, because I can tell you as a representative, I've tried really hard to make sure that everybody in my community knows the services that are available to them. I've had people reach out and ask me questions about their housing. And I've said to myself, I lived in public housing that was federally funded. I would have never thought to go to my congressperson with this issue. So making sure there has to be, I guess, more information sharing, where it's not only the people who have agency or access or some activism in them that get the attention of their congressional representatives, but people need to know, this is how we are working for you. This is where that federal funding came from. This is how that program exists. And I think right now, as those services are being attacked and cut, people are understanding that. People understand that the reason why their school has a speech therapist is because they are Title I, and the federal government is bringing those services in so that their children can have them. People are understanding that the reason why we have, recovery programs is because those are federally funded to help, stabilize and rehabilitate communities. As those programs begin to disappear and people realize the good that they've done, they're saying, wait a minute, that's not what I asked for. That's not what I want. And it can't be this idea. I think this is something I really try to stress, and it's the teacher in me that keeps coming back to that. It can't be just, I need for my family and my children to be okay. As the Congresswoman, I want everybody's family and everybody's children to be okay. And that has to be a part of the work that we all do collectively. And this shutdown really is a slap in the face to all of those people who literally are saying, I'm doing my part. I'm showing up for work every day. I'm showing up in my community. I'm paying my taxes. I really don't have an option to do that, with the expectation that the things that I need will be taken care of by our federal government.
So, Representative Hayes, I think one is that, yes, the folks work for, members of Congress work for the folks that for their communities, and I think people forget that social contract, right? And so it's that conversation. I have to say that it warms my heart to know that you have active caseworkers talking to your community about how they can take most advantage of the work that you do and you offer. But as we wrap up, what is something that someone sitting at home just reading the headlines?
Oh, I lost you. Well, I'm not sure what happened. It looks like we lost Maria, but what I will say is that this morning I sent out a newsletter to all of my constituents with some frequently asked questions and just answers to those questions. And what I think we all will continue to do is just stay in constant communication. People have so many questions. So as we get information, I think updating people in real time is the best thing that we can do. And just hearing from people how they are deeply impacted, what is happening specifically in their family, in their situation, so that we have all that information when we come back to Washington and continue to fight for the government that they deserve, for the services that they need, and the health care that is their right. So thank you all for joining us, for supporting these efforts, for tuning in and engaging. I really hope that you can feel that House Democrats are working for you. Take care.
everyone. I'm Greg Landsman, Congressman from the 1st Congressional District in Ohio.
I'm Mark Vesey, Congressman from the 33rd Congressional District in Fort Worth and Dallas.
I'm Nikki Budzinski. I represent the 13th District in Illinois in Springfield.
So we're live streaming as part of our New Dems podcast, The Fly-In, simultaneously as the leaders and others are live streaming too. We want to use this opportunity to explain to folks what's happening with the shutdown, what to expect, why this is happening, and how we get out of this mess.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with you, Mark, because we didn't get to do the fly-in on Monday.
No.
I guess you were flying late.
No, I had another event that I was doing, and so I didn't get a chance to participate. But I'm glad that I'm here today because this topic is hugely important.
So you've been here longer. Nikki and I came in in 2023, so we're newbies.
Yeah.
And I can just tell you from my experience as the first time shutdown, I'm incredibly frustrated. I'm angry. This was totally unavoidable. The President of the United States is supposed to be the person who leads, who brings people together, who solves problems. This is an infinitely solvable problem. Most people want a budget that includes assurances that, in fact, the administration is going to spend the money on behalf of
but it's been appropriated
based on what Congress has said, and that we are going to protect people's health care, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He told members to go fuck themselves, and he is now, God only knows what he's doing today, but outside of making memes, he's not really doing anything on this.
Nothing.
We desperately need somebody to get this deal done.
Yeah, we need for people to get something done. And I will tell you, because I've been through the shutdowns before. I remember my freshman year, we had a shutdown that actually lasted a pretty lengthy period.
And the 30-plus day one.
Yes, that was a 30-plus day one. The longest one that we had. We were here, really every day. And sometimes we would fly home on Saturday and come back on Monday.
Wow.
Or fly home Sunday and come back Monday.
Oh, really?
When you came back, that you were coming back for the, because there might be a deal, because you might have to vote.
No, it never. That was not the expectation. I think that it was just like everybody needs to be back when they gavel in, and so it basically came down to that.
I do think it's like an important point for this shutdown to note that we're here in Washington. They are not. House Republicans are not. I mean, we stand ready to get to work to get this deal done.
It's
So
a huge mistake for the speaker. He knew we were coming back. There were 2 days where we could have negotiated and ironed this out. And the Senate was here, House Democrats were here, and the speaker just told Republicans, "Hey, stay on vacation."
And he's lying. I mean, the thing about Johnson, for all of his "Thus saith the Lord" this and "Thus saith the Lord" that, I heard him on CNN this morning talking about undocumented being able to get benefits, which is very illegal, which is highly illegal. But
it's a lie. It's a lie.
Yeah, it's a lie.
To be very clear, it's against federal law. They are using two. This is in some ways how like one, they've gone around the bend. Two, they've lost the argument, and so they've got to lie.
Yeah.
That we're fighting for something to do with giving illegal immigrants services or health care, whatever it is. But it's a lie. It's literally against the law. He knows that. And then something about trans folks, because that's their go-to.
Right.
That's their go-to when they've lost the argument. But the problem is what we're asking for is healthcare. It's one word. Healthcare.
And it's something that the American people overwhelmingly support. They, something like 22 million Americans get support to pay healthcare, their healthcare bills, or their health coverage through the Affordable Care Act investments, these subsidies, and they're going to lose them on January 1 unless we don't act now. And so we're saying, like, look, this isn't that hard. Just extend the ACA tax credits.
Well, if I can say too, Greg,
Yeah.
I mean, just about my district alone, it's 17,000 people that are going to lose access to the ACA because those tax credits are what really made it affordable. I mean, premiums are already going up, whether you're taking advantage of the tax credits or not. I think if people pay attention to their bottom lines, they're going to see premiums are going up. 17,000 people in my district alone. I'm sure you guys know the
30,000
numbers.
in mine.
30,000 in yours.
That's
I mean,
my number. Yeah.
that is huge.
Yeah,
I mean, and what's happening in this country is healthcare is becoming less and less affordable and less accessible.
Yeah.
And I'd also just add on top of that, I have a very rural district. I mean, I know you guys both probably represent parts of rural communities, but what's going to happen with this manufactured healthcare crisis, if I could just say, by the Republicans,
they're doing it.
is the pain points are going to be felt everywhere. But I really want to kind of emphasize for rural communities what it's going to mean. I mean, rural hospitals rely on Medicaid to keep our doors open.
Yeah.
I know in my district, I spent a lot of time talking to my community health centers, to the hospitals. They rely on about 30% of their budget just in Medicaid dollars to keep those doors open. So what it's going to mean is less and less options for folks in rural communities that already have challenges. We don't have a lot of those healthcare specialists that you might have in Cincinnati or in Dallas or Fort Worth. You know, those kind of specialists, we're already challenged with attracting them into our rural communities and getting them to stay. But then when you talk about doors closing, I mean, the crisis is only going to get worse.
Because when a hospital shutters its doors, they close.
Yeah.
Everybody that works there obviously loses their jobs. Everyone that supports that hospital, I mean, suppliers, but also doctors,
right?
They go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that community goes from having some health care to having to drive 30, 45 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just not sustainable. And it's for the richest country in the world, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And when people realize that all of this was to pay for tax cuts for the super wealthy, it pisses them off. Like it just makes them so mad because the billionaire class, like the super, super wealthy folks in this country, it's the golden age for them. That's Trump's golden age. Like that's what he means. It's for him and his, billionaire donors.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, it's getting
hard.
grim.
Yeah, grim. I think that's really true. I also want to just mention something I've heard in talking about rural healthcare in particular. Some of our Republican colleagues like to talk about in the big ugly bill that there was $50 billion put in there for rural healthcare to kind of shore them up. That is like such a drop in the bucket.
It sounds like a big number. It's like
not.
50 billion, but you're like, wait a minute, you're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar investment in these rural hospitals, like $50 billion.
It's nothing.
Doesn't do anything other than
provide a talking point.
Provide you a talking point.
Not to interrupt you, but yeah, it's a talking point. It's incredibly frustrating. And I think like talking about affordability, I mean, for us as Democrats, we're drawing the line in the sand on healthcare, but I think it's worth noting that the other things that the Republicans have attacked, SNAP, for example, $187 billion food assistance. We have more hungry people now in this country because of the Republican agenda and this administration. And not only that, but you look at I used to work at OMB. You look at what they're doing where Russ Vought is freezing a lot of funds. I know my communities have come to rely on some grants. We did the ribbon cutting. We did the actual announcement, and they're not cutting these checks. And so I think some of this is also like an erosion of trust that we're seeing in Washington. But affordability is number one. How are people affording groceries when tariffs are being applied on everything? We saw the recent news about pharmaceuticals. It's going to only lead to increased prices for pharmaceuticals, for prescription drugs, energy prices.
I was trying to think the other day, is there a part of my budget, family budget, that has not been, that hasn't gotten worse, right? Like, so the utility bills across the board are going up.
Right.
Because they cut all these
tax credits,
clean energy projects.
Yeah.
The AI data centers are taking up all this electricity. They're doing nothing to fix it. They've made it worse, obviously. So utility costs are going up.
Yeah.
And that's true for our family.
Yeah.
Healthcare costs are going up.
Yep.
Groceries are going up. Almost anything you buy is going up. Housing and property taxes have gone up. is there like, I mean, I don't know if this is even a useful exercise. Is there part of like the like normal family budget that has not been worsened over the last 9 months?
Literally everything has gone up. These Trump tariff taxes, along with these healthcare, cuts that he is talking about, is really just going to hurt everyone's bottom line. And then if you put on top of that, you just mentioned Rasvat, who is, my understanding, one of the architects of Project.
No, he is.
And he says he's using, laying off all government workers if we don't come to a resolution behind this. But I know that he eagerly wants to lay off a bunch of people. And so just imagine the Trump tariff taxes, the cut to people's healthcare tax credits, and all the people that he could possibly lay off. It would be an economic catastrophe that this country would have to swallow. And I don't know, and I don't know like what that would do to the economy. I think it would really push us to depths that we haven't seen. That
I think that this is always bad for the economy, a shutdown, but this one is going to be, I would assume, unfortunately, particularly bad. And I'm curious, Nikki, because you worked for the administration, previous administrations, and you worked at the Office of Management and Budget.
Right.
So far, they have fired or forced out of their jobs 275,000 public employees.
Yeah.
Now, the other way to say that is they have killed the jobs of 275,000 Americans.
The livelihoods.
Yeah, they've killed their jobs. They're the first president ever to actively create unemployment.
Right.
Now they're saying we're going to go further.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your sense as to what that could look like? I mean, how bad could it be? They've already done 250,000 people. They've already fired 250,000 Americans. Like, how much worse can it be?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think the cruelty that they're showing toward the federal workforce and the jobs and the livelihoods that are being impacted is cannot be overstated, the negative impact that that's going to be. But I also look at it from the lens of my constituents. I mean, the things that we do in our offices at back home is we help people get their Social Security benefits. When a veteran has a question about their VA benefits, or we have a constituent that calls about the IRS, my office is then helping to liaise between that constituent and the federal government. And when you shrink the federal government and you cut the federal government, and these aren't just cuts, I think these are like deep, like wounds to the bone, it's going to be a lack of services. And so when Russ Vought tries to brag, I mean, it's so heartless the way he's bragging about cutting these jobs. Constituents back home need to realize, for me, for example, I represent 17,000 federal workers within my district. I mean, I think a lot of people think of the federal workforce as just something within the District of Columbia, like bubble.
No,
it's
85%,
really not.
85% of all federal workers are outside. I've got 15 too.
So on top of like,
we have thousands in DFW, thousands.
And that's horrible. I mean, so they're going to be impacted.
He's threatening to fire more people.
Definitely.
I mean, do you think it's tens of thousands more, hundreds of thousands more? Like, do you have any sense as to like how far it could go?
I mean, I think we should take what this administration says very seriously. I think he was intending to make that announcement prior to the shutdown as one way to kind of threaten, I think, Democrats. But let's be honest, Greg, like they've already been doing this. They've already been laying off, doing deep cuts into different agencies. And what's also really hard is that we have a United States Supreme Court that when these challenges get challenged through litigation, the Supreme Court is saying that this administration can do it.
Yeah.
So, we're really forced into, fighting back. And that's a big part of why we're here.
Yeah, Nikki, before you go, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the number one thing that members can be doing at home? And I know we're going to have Chairman Aguilar step in here in just a minute. What do you think members can be doing mostly when they go back to their districts?
I think it sounds really basic, but I think it's critically important is spending time with your constituents. There is so much anxiety out there, not just about the shutdown, but I think more broadly, the way this administration is approaching governing, people are really afraid. And so what I try to do is, I'm going to stop by and thank my TSA agents, of course. We're going to do a wrap rally with some of the union workers with AFGE that have been really doing the hard work within the VA that are possibly going to be facing more cuts, more job elimination. So spending time with the workforce. But I think it is doing the best we can to communicate to our constituents that our offices stay open. We're going to continue to try to make those connections within agencies on Social Security and IRS, but folks need to expect likely very serious delays because of what's happening.
By the way, before you get out of here, I got one question. This is funny.
Yeah.
So this is from a reporter, a Hill reporter, who says, okay, so if Nikki Baczynski is engaging in Twitter fights, the world is really off kilter, which is true. Like, because you're like
I
low
did
key.
engage a little bit in this today.
Yes. This was your tweet. How about you stop trolling on X, which is very generous of you. Because it's Twitter. I don't like it. Like, I
say Twitter typically, but to be technical.
And stand up for your constituents who are struggling with skyrocketing premiums due to your manufactured healthcare crisis. Like, first of all, bravo.
Thank you.
And second of all, like, yeah, it is true. Like, you don't do this. So like, I'm assuming because you're as mad as I am.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have to draw the line in the sand. This is not, I would argue this is not, and I've not been through a government shutdown before, but this is not normal times. I mean, and I think we have to start fighting back.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Travel safely.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
We appreciate you coming back on.
Thanks.
All right. We have the chair of the Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar.
From Redlands, Cali. What's going on, man? How you doing?
This is going to be really hard for the three of us because
he has on the. This is why you're when you're in leadership. He actually has on the full attire. He has the attire on today. Yeah. Where Greg and
you're so serious because and like I don't like we did when the three of us are together. Typically, it's just jokes.
Yeah.
Like I try to win at being the funniest. I lose to Pete usually. Although Mark, but unfortunately, this is a very serious moment, and you've been probably doing this a lot more through the last couple of days than either of us. What's your message been? I mean, like, what do you think is the most important thing for people to know right now?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nikki Baczynski. I think she, kind of nailed it, right? We got to be. We have to talk to our constituents about the stakes, what's going on here, and why we're here.
Yeah,
we're here. Republicans control everything: the House, the Senate, the White House. The three of us worked day and night to try to get to a majority. We didn't. This is where we are. Republicans won. We acknowledge that, but they've created this. They've created this healthcare crisis, and they've assaulted healthcare. They've used it as a punching bag, and they want to hurt our communities. And so. That's where we are, and that's the most important message that we can convey, and like the unity of the Democratic Caucus. That's why I'm so thankful, to be a part of it. And you guys are amazing, and I'm a longtime fan of the Fly-In. And before Punch Bowl stole your name,
so
it's like, can we talk about that for a minute?
By the way, so we created the Fly-In. Yeah. Well, New Dems did. And then Punch Bowl was like, great idea.
Yeah.
We'll just steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have not been invited on yet.
We have not.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that there's something there. I feel that like there's, some royalties that can be shared or something.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I think the speaker made a huge mistake by not bringing people back. Cause like we were very clear, like we're coming back. You were very clear. You were like, because you're the chair, you're like, we need everyone back. That was not a private thing. We weren't trying to keep it a secret. We were coming back because we wanted to get a deal done.
We want to work, right? That's just who we are. Like
he made a mistake. I mean, it seems like he made.
I think it's a total tactical mistake, unforced error, right? And we can talk about whether that means, whether that's because they don't want to swear in Adelita and Epstein.
Well, let's go back to that. Like, did he? Because it seems so simple to say, like, because so much of this is messaging and who's going to sort of blink first, and here we are in DC trying to get a deal done. They're on vacation. He didn't call them back. Is it because he doesn't care? Did he screw up? Or is it more sinister that he knows that if we if he brought everyone back, he would have to swear in a new member of Congress who would sign the discharge petition requiring a vote on the Epstein files.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely at play, right? Like folks, folks in his orbit, on the other side of the aisle, they're very aware that we're one signature away. They know it's coming. I think that it's definitely in play here. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's real. However, I do think he just wanted to jam the Senate, right? He just wanted, House Republicans always think that they're, too smart by half, and they're really not. And so we're just going to send this over, and we're just going to, make them eat it. And Chuck Schumer's going to cave, and we're holding, firm. Meanwhile, to the American public, it looks like, oh wait, the government's shut down and you guys are on vacation, and like what's going on here? And so I do think that it is an unforced error, but there are Epstein dynamics here. We can't deny that. I mean, it's very real. She'll be number 218 to sign that. It'll force a vote or force them to go through different strategies on if they want to try to avoid a vote. But it's a problem for them.
Yeah,
and the Senate.
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. Not switching gears, but switching gears a little bit. The press conference yesterday on the steps, I thought it was powerful.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about some of those families? I'm sure that you and Hakeem and Catherine probably had a chance to talk with some of them and got to know them better than we did. Is there something else that you want to tell us about that? Because I thought they were all powerful stories. The guy that talked about, because one of the talking points that Republicans keep using is, able-bodied men this and able-bodied men that,
or it's like this luxury tax credit. It's just this nice to have kind of thing,
right?
In terms of the ACA tax credits,
right?
But like
when I heard the guy yesterday talking about like how it hurt his pride.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to me, what came across was like how proud he was.
Yeah.
Tells the story. Like he's a professor.
Yeah,
he's got stage 4 cancer.
He's a professor from PA, from Pennsylvania, stage 4 cancer, been fighting it, and he's on the Affordable Care Act premiums and gets his health care through that. And clearly, I mean, what came across to all of us is just how proud he was to, like, he is working hard.
Yeah.
He's a full-time professor.
Yeah.
And he still has to get his healthcare through the Affordable Care Act, which he's fine with, but like it just came through how authentic and like real he was about the difficulty that his family will be in if those premium subsidies go away and if those costs go up. And I think that's true for so many people, right? Republicans, to your point, Greg, and they always want to say, oh, we'll just keep it the way it is. And it's just, we just want people to work, or able-bodied people, all these like, signals that they send, when we all know in our districts, especially our 3 districts, like people work hard and they have a lot of pride with what they do.
Harder than they've ever worked.
Yeah. And they don't want a government handout.
No.
And they work incredibly hard for their family not to have that happen.
It's that line in the West Wing where it's like they want it to be a little easier.
Yeah.
Just like they're working really hard, just help make it a little easier. And that's what the subsidies do. They make it a little easier to pay your health care.
Yeah, and Pete, they want us to speak a little bit louder. So if you could elevate it up some, that'd be awesome.
All right. I only have like 3 cups of coffee.
This is where we're being authentic. So if they say we're going to speak louder, we're just going to like.
All right, so it's like
we're at the bar.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, okay. Yeah. All right. Like your bar scene in West Wing or something.
That was a bar scene. Look at you. Yeah. It's just I want it to be a little bit easier. And essentially what happens is you could also tell that he's terrified. He's terrified that in a couple of months he is going to lose his healthcare subsidy. Yeah. And then he's not going to be able to pay for everything without going into enormous medical debt. So his life, is on the line because he's, going through treatment. And who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, like we all want him to, get through this. But he is, if they do not extend these tax credits, his life without enormous medical debt is over. Yeah. And that will be true for millions and millions of Americans. And that is the negotiation, which is the simplest negotiation ever, like a CR plus healthcare. That's all Trump has to do. That's the math that Trump is working through. But it does require him to do what he has previously said presidents need to do, which I agree with, which is you got to lead, you got to do the work. And he likes to say, I'm super powerful. I'm all powerful. 9 months of this, right? If you're all powerful, why is it so hard for you to put, a half a dozen people in a room and get a deal done?
Yeah. It just shocks the conscience, right? How they don't want to do this and how they can hear these stories. And we all know that they heard these stories leading into the big ugly bill, right? The big ugly law. Now, they heard these stories from folks and they were just unmoved. And like the three of us and the rest of our colleagues on the House steps, we're so moved by these stories. This is just the fundamental difference of like who we are and who our coalition is and just who we look out for. And that's what I walked away with on the kind of political side was, look, I can't believe how somebody could listen to these stories and feel that this guy's out for himself, or that this is just something that that he shouldn't have, or the mom who has 2 autistic kids and she's caring for them. But how she talks about, but she still talked about like how different they were and how they both like wanted to do different things, and she's just trying to make it happen and trying to be there for them. And we've all heard stories about caregivers and Medicaid providing care to their kids while they are on the Affordable Care Act, right? And so they're feeling pinched from both ends, right? Because they have these premium tax credits going away with Medicaid changes on the horizon, and it's hurting these families. And that's like, to me, those are the stories that resonate. So what we can do is elevate those. Exactly.
Before we let you get out of here, because you are super busy, the chair of the caucus, one of the things you have to do is keep everyone organized and together. And this is
fed.
And fed.
We appreciate that.
Organized, together, and fed.
Yeah.
And you've done that just incredibly well throughout, my time here as a member of Congress. But over the last couple of days, this is as united as I've seen this caucus, and well fed.
Thank you.
And it's because the fight is on something that we all desperately care about, healthcare. That's core to who we are. And I just think it's very, very problematic for Trump to have us as united as we are with the American people, because the American people, by 70%, 80%, they want this. They want this healthcare.
Yeah.
And they are divided, right? Because there are some people who are like, you gotta give them people their healthcare, and others who are like, it's too expensive.
Not only are they divided, my counterpart, someone we know, Lisa McClain, who runs the Republican conference, she outright told their members, do not talk about healthcare.
Correct.
Right? Like that is their message. They know this is a losing issue. Yeah. They know that they shouldn't talk about this. Their advice isn't, here's some stories, be empathetic, right? Like sit down with folks, talk about the bill. No. Their message is don't talk about healthcare. When you're home, don't talk about healthcare. That's the guidance that they gave to their members this week going into the shutdown week. It's
But
so
they're on
crazy.
vacation. They were like, okay. And then, just put the phone down.
I mean, that would entail like doing work, which we're not all convinced that they are yet. So they're clearly not here working. I doubt that they're having, healthcare roundtables and story shares.
No.
But that's who we are. But that's just a fundamental difference, right? They're on vacation. We're here. We're ready to work. And they're telling their members, don't talk about healthcare. To your point, Greg, he's underwater on the economy. Trump's underwater on all these categories. Working people are affected by all of these, policies.
They not only want us to win this fight, they need us to. This is I hate using the word. This is existential for them. This is a huge deal. They need us to win this fight.
I really do think they want us to win this fight.
Well, and you guys in the new. You guys in your New Dem coalition role, but just is who you are as policymakers, you guys talk about hardworking men and women that you represent better than a lot of people. And because that's just kind of, how we grew up, it's who we are, it's who we represent, it's who we hang out with, when we're not here, there are people. And so, fighting for them, we're never going to lose if we're fighting for them and fighting for those people. We won't talk about how the Dodgers are going to beat the Reds, here.
It was so close last night. At one point, it was 8-0ng.
Yeah, and then it was.
And I was like, wow.
The Dodgers tried to give it away. Our bullpen is pretty awful right now, but we tried to give.
Was it the longest home run ever? It was. I mean,
so Tawny.
This is, I think it's between the Bengals and Reds, and then we'll get out of here. I think our gift is you get to have those experiences. Then you should love Cincinnati sports because the Bengals they did it for the Broncos and the Vikings before that. Now we're doing it for the Dodgers. You're welcome.
It's got to be just a huge disappointment being a sports fan in the Natty.
Here's the problem with Cincinnati fans, or most of us. We're homers. So like we don't care. I love my Bengals. It doesn't matter. Like the Reds, I'm just so proud of them. I'm so proud of them. They finished the game and everything. They get to play again tonight.
Yeah, they play again tonight.
We're homers. We don't care.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Pete. We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Gabe Vasquez, come on
down.
down.
New Mexico. I've been handed a very important document. Oh, we're playing a game.
Gabe Vasquez.
That's right.
Yeah, this is my hunting buddy right here, Gabe Vasquez. There are a handful of us in the Democratic caucus that like to hunt, and this is my main man when it comes to getting out into the great outdoors.
That's right.
I've walked in his district in New Mexico, and I was just mesmerized by the beauty and the.
Yeah, you have probably one of the most beautiful
Oh
districts.
my God, it is stunning. We saw like wild antelope. I mean, it is.
What?
Oh yeah.
Pronghorn antelope.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks
Oh
for
my God.
inviting me.
Fastest land mammal in North America, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
I've never been invited. I wouldn't know.
It is. I'm telling you, if you
It's in
have
your
not
inbox.
been to New Mexico, it is absolutely stunning. It is beautiful, and for the people that work as federal game wardens and the other federal agencies in your district, we want them to be able to enjoy the great outdoors as well without fear of not being paid. And we know that a lot of these federal workers, when they get laid off, when we have government shutdowns,
They get furloughed.
they get furloughed, and some people that are in law enforcement positions, they still have to come to work. So
that's right.
They won't get paid, but they still have to come to work. And that's just unfair. And I really pray that not just in my district and Greg's district, but for the hardworking men and women that work in your district that allow people like me to come from out of state and have an amazing, safe experience on those federal lands. I pray that we're able to get the government open and this does not last long, and that we're able to save people's health care because to me that's so important.
It's important, Mark, and thanks for the shout out. You know, we have White Sands National Park, we have Carlsbad Caverns National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, two beautiful gems in the Southwest. Both are closed as of today. That brings economic opportunity to communities like Carlsbad, New Mexico, 500,000 visitors a year. I mean, it's really incredible, the type of economic opportunity that these resources offer that are managed by our federal land managers.
Terrible.
And they're closed. And there's families out there who are, you know, road tripping across the country
To find a closed gate.
Closed gate.
Yeah. All right. The last time you were on the show, we played a game called Falso or Cierto.
That's right.
False or true. Why isn't Cierto a falso? Isn't it true or false? Why are you switching it around? It doesn't matter.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Technical.
What happened?
It was.
Oh, we just flip it.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for that.
He was gonna,
I'm not an engineer. I'm a politician.
But I'm the same way. I'm like, there were two.
All right.
I want everybody to know, like in New Mexico, hatch chili season is like a really big deal.
It's a big deal.
It is a huge deal, and is it still going on or is it over?
Oh no, it's still the harvest. So we're into the second harvest for green chili right now.
Okay.
Then a little bit later we'll get into the red chili.
Do you make your own salsa?
I make my own everything. Chile relleno, salsa.
Oh, really?
Sometimes you just bite into a chili. It's better than a Red Bull. So
It's better than a Red Bull.
It is.
All right, number one. This is for you.
All right.
This is your game.
So this is truth. This is truth or false?
Yes.
Cierto, green, true.
Yeah.
Falso.
Congressional
false.
Republicans showed up to work yesterday.
That's the red chili right there.
Yeah.
That's the red chili.
They did not.
They did not. You know, all of our colleagues were here, and I'm very proud that this caucus is sticking together to work for the American people and to protect people's health care.
Yeah.
And that means showing up. You know,
Yeah.
Speaker Johnson canceled votes last week. That means to me that Republicans had really no intention of coming to the negotiating table with us. I do think I saw maybe one Republican at the movies or something yesterday. So
Really?
Yeah, they may be here, but they're not working. I don't know.
Did you really go to the movies?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
Let me ask you the second one real quick.
Is there a movie theater? Sounds like fun.
True or false? Congressional Republicans voted to protect rural health care.
Big false.
Oh yeah.
Red chili.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're gonna say, Gabe, that they put money in there for rural hospitals.
Well, let me tell you this. I went to several of my rural hospitals and clinics, and this $50 million or whatever it is that they offered up, $50 billion that they offered up as compensation for the closing of rural hospitals due to the Medicaid cuts is a competitive grant process that has more red tape and bureaucracy.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So this is what my clinic administrators are telling me. They're saying, you know what, we're not getting any of this
it's
money.
Also like it's also basic math. Like I'm not the smartest guy in the world, as you both know, but I'm, you know, like I got the basics. They took, you know, $1 trillion plus out of the system, and then they're like, but we have this $50 billion grant program.
Yeah.
To like
competitive grant program.
Yeah. So like, what did they think was going to happen?
Right. Well, I mean, imagine that
these hospitals are going to close.
Imagine you get 4 flat tires, right? You can't drive your car anymore, and somebody comes to you and they say, "Here's 1 tire." But you like make the best of what you can with that, but you're gonna have to compete for that tire.
You're gonna have to compete for it. Yeah.
So it's a
there's
shame.
A lot of paperwork.
But isn't that the Trump way? They want to Project 2025 you and squeeze you until there's literally like nothing left.
And then they privatize it, and then one of their billionaire buddies gets a contract. That is literally the direction we're going. Right. All right, number 3, the president spoke to the country's generals at Pete Hegseth's military rally yesterday, where he said the Pentagon should use U.S. cities as training grounds.
I can't believe I'm putting the green up right now, but it's true. Cierto.
Yeah. Cierto.
There we go.
Yeah, it's chilling. One, you have these incredible generals who have spent their entire lives doing public service and defending this country and working their tails off. And they, these are some of the smartest people in the world. Like generals are, very, very, very serious people. You could argue there's no one more serious than a U.S. general, and they've been summoned from East Asia and the Middle East and Europe and all over. To come here and to have the president of the United States say, we don't really care what you think about training. We want to use American cities to start training.
Gabe, dog, you're my main man.
Yeah.
And we go hunting together and everything. But Jeffries is about to come on.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you don't mind, we're going to have Jeffries on.
Oh, no, we got time.
We're gonna
you're gonna say.
The band is.
I just didn't want to cut you off, but
Well, you know what? Let me just say something about that. Is that
dog and everything? But Jeffrey's got to get on.
Jeffrey's got to get on. He's got an important job to do. But I'll just say, our military men and women, they take an oath to the Constitution, not to the president.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Can we do one more?
Okay.
Yeah, we do one more.
One more. All right. One more.
Pam Bondi released phase 2 of the Epstein files.
Big red. Big red.
Yeah.
We all know that.
By the way, what's phase 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the one that comes after phase 1, obviously, Greg. I mean, one of the reasons why we think Republicans didn't show up this week was because they don't want to swear in this new member of Congress who's going to sign the discharge petition, the 218 signature. And, the Epstein stuff is relevant in part because it's these, super wealthy people behaving so badly and getting away with it, which is what you're seeing constantly.
Okay. Hey, yes, let's get back to that. Gabe, you stick around. We have our leader on, Hakeem Jeffries, that is joining the fly-in. So, Hakeem, our esteemed leader, thank you very much for joining us, man.
Great to be with the three of you. I was actually enjoying the show. Very,
I love that.
Very informative. And entertaining at the same time. So, Mark and Greg and Gabe, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for, your presence. Democrats are on Capitol Hill, reporting for duty, executing our duties. And of course, Republicans are on vacation throughout the country and throughout the rest of the world. And they've shut the government down, and they've shut the government down because they don't want to provide health care to working class Americans. That's what this situation is all about. It's quite unfortunate because there's a path forward here, Democrats and Republicans sitting down, having a conversation, figuring out how we can reach a bipartisan agreement to reopen the government and also fund the government moving forward in a way that meets the needs of the American people. And the only thing that we've made clear is that we're not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the healthcare of the American people in the face of what has been a relentless Republican assault on the healthcare of everyday Americans, hurting people in rural America, in urban America, in small town America, in the heartland of America, in Black and brown communities all throughout America in ways that have never been seen before. A tax on Medicaid, largest cut to Medicaid in American history, triggering a potential $536 billion cut to Medicare, which is an earned benefit for older Americans all across the country. We know, of course, hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers are closing all across the country, including in rural communities, because of what Republicans did in the one big ugly bill. And now they're refusing to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, meaning healthcare costs for tens of millions of Americans are about to go up dramatically related to their premiums, copays, and deductibles. So I'm thankful for the New Dem Coalition, for your steadfastness, for your heart, your soul, the intellectual expertise that you bring to these fierce debates that we're having on behalf of the American people.
Can I ask you, thank you for joining us and thank you for everything that you've been doing. Curious about, you met with the president, he has not wanted to negotiate at all with Democrats. He told congressional Republicans, do not negotiate with Democrats, even though this budget has to be bipartisan. He knows that, or at least we assume he knows that. And you go over, you're sitting at the White House. Is it clear to him? We all grew up watching the president of the United States dig in moments like this and understand that they're the ones that have to lead and they have to negotiate a deal that they have to work. Is it clear? And it's not a leading question because you were with him for an hour and a half. Like, what was your take? Does he understand that this is on him? 1, 2, that 22 million Americans are going to lose their healthcare support, January 1, and millions more are going to lose it when these Medicaid cuts. Does he understand what's happening?
Yeah, that's not entirely clear. He certainly doesn't understand that as a result of actions that have been taken by Republicans in the House and the Senate, and then signed into law by Donald Trump related to the one big ugly bill, that millions of Americans are losing their health care coverage because of the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. He knows why they did it.
Yeah.
Did it to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks, and they're continuing to run the largest pay-to-play scheme in American history. He knows why they've taken some actions, but it's not clear that he fully understands, or at least didn't acknowledge, the consequences of the action. So we laid out quite clearly for him in that meeting that there's a Republican healthcare crisis that is devastating people all across America, and we've got to address it. And that's the point that Democrats have been making, particularly as we are on the eve of the Affordable Care Act tax credits expiring in an environment where the cost of living in this country is already too high. Yeah. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. Life is too expensive, and it's about to get much worse because of the actions being taken by the Republicans.
Leader Jeffries, let me ask you something. I asked Chairman Aguilar about this a little bit earlier. The press conference that we had yesterday on the steps, I thought was very powerful. You had an opportunity to spend time with the parents of 2 autistic children, the single mother with 2 autistic children, the college professor that had stage 4 cancer that was worried about his premiums going up. What do you think people like Russ Vought, who seems to almost be gleeful about the prospect of laying off thousands and thousands of federal employees, Trump that just doesn't seem to have any sort of empathy when it comes to people's healthcare costs, what would you tell people like Trump and Vought about some of these individuals that you met and that you spent time with. And I'm sure that your office even comes across more people like that. What are they missing? What would you tell them about Americans like the ones that stood beside you yesterday on the steps of the Capitol?
It's very powerful in the fact that, we had a person from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who brought his daughter so that she could stand behind him and give him strength as he's navigating stage 4 cancer, battling for his life, but also, battling for the well-being of his family, who he might leave behind if he's unable to get the health care that he needs, being provided by the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And it all just highlights that these debates aren't about cold facts and figures. They're about human beings, real life individuals, families, children, women, a dad with stage 4 cancer, a small business owner trying to raise autistic children, a nurse from Ohio who's concerned that her patients will no longer be able to get the health care that they need because of the dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. So as Democrats, we're fighting for these everyday Americans to improve their quality of life. It's not sloganeering. That's what we hear from the Republicans on the other side, making up lies about the things that Democrats are fighting for. No. We're fighting to make life better for the people that we represent and everyday Americans all across the country who are being run over by these cruel Republican policies, because often cruelty is the point. That's what we're seeing from the Trump administration. Cruelty is the point, and we're pushing back to make clear that America always takes care of its citizens. And that's what we Democrats plan to do.
The Senate yesterday voted on two called budget bills, one that included the restoration of healthcare for tens of millions of Americans, and one that didn't. Neither one passed, but the fact that there is a second bill, there is a bill that would reopen the government and provide healthcare, restore healthcare, and extend these tax credits so people don't lose their healthcare. Why is that second bill what would it take? And I guess this is the leading question, because it requires Trump to actually do work. He would have to sit down with these congressional leaders on the Senate side, you, the Speaker, and just say, look, we've got these two bills. Let's get a deal done. That's it, right?
That's it. And we've actually made clear we're ready to sit down anytime, any place with anyone in order to reopen the government, make sure that we enact a spending agreement that improves the quality of life of the American people, and that we address the Republican healthcare crisis. Unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't seem interested. In fact, as you pointed out, has directed congressional Republican leaders, don't even talk to Democrats. We don't even want to have a conversation.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And that's why we find ourselves with the government shutdown right now, and we're imploring them. Come up to Capitol Hill, we'll go back to the White House, we'll have the conversation to find the common ground necessary. That's what the American people want. In a common
in the West Wing, the president walked to Capitol Hill. Maybe you and I and others should just walk up to down to the White House and see if he'll at least talk to us. You know,
I have to make that happen next week.
Yeah.
Hey, you get the final word.
Close us out, Hakeem. Close us out, Mr. Leader.
Well, thank you all. House Democrats are united, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder with Senate Democrats, and of course, significant leadership from the New Dem coalition to stand up for the American people. We need to reopen this government, but we need to reopen this government, of course, in a bipartisan way, and that requires authentic, good faith partnership with the other side of the aisle. And they've been unwilling to even have a conversation. But I'm here in Washington, D.C. We'll continue to be here, and will make myself available at any time and any place to meet with anyone on the other side of the aisle to get this done. But we are not going to abandon our post in connection with the position that we have that we have to address this Republican healthcare crisis, that we will not support any efforts to continue to gut the healthcare of the American people, and that it's important to make sure that children and families and men and women all across the beauty of the United States of America in every possible place have the ability to raise their family in a comfortable way and not simply struggling to live paycheck to paycheck.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Soon. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thanks, Hakeem.